What's up, it's Marco, Sage of Soccer, and today I'll be doing my in-depth preview of Group A for the upcoming 2022 World Cup. And this is going to be an in-depth look at every single team in the group, Netherlands, Senegal, Ecuador, and Qatar. And as well as that, I'll be doing predictions at the end of the video. Timestamps for everything that you want to see in the description. And with that, let's get into it. As an American, the optimist in me is really looking forward to seeing these teams because there's a good chance we're facing one of them in the knockout round. So, that being said, we're going to start with the team that I think will be winning this group, the Netherlands. They're a team with a very strong defense and a good amount of creativity in the squad. They have Louis van Gaal at the helm, managing the team again, and with that, you know they're going to have a strong defense. Though I do think they'll need a little bit of luck to get far in this tournament. That being said, I think they're the best team in the group and should be able to win it. So they've had a lot of success in the Nations League, looked very good. They're in the Nations League semifinals, and I think they'll be able to carry that success into the World Cup. They've been finding a lot of goals, and the defense has been rock solid, though not having a world-class goalkeeper might hold them back. There's a ton of talent in this midfield with Frenkie de Jong, though his partner, Gini Wijnaldum, is missing. We'll have to see who ends up replacing him. I think there's one guy in mind who will be the starter, but has to be seen. The attack doesn't really have the star power that you could see with a bunch of old Dutch teams. There's no Robbie van Persie or Ruud van Nistelrooy in the squad, but a lot of very good in-form players who got hot at the right time, and with them, I could easily see Netherlands making a run at this World Cup. Though I think their lack of star power, especially in the attack, could hold them back, and I think they'll need a little bit of luck to get past the quarterfinals, but I think they should be able to get out of this group. Tripping up is definitely possible, but I think they're the favorites, and it'll be fun to watch in this tournament. On to the individual players of the squad. Starting with goalkeeper, it's probably the weakest position of this team. Remko, Pasveer, and get ready for a lot of bad pronunciations, I'm sorry. The 38-year-old Ajax goalkeeper, who recently won his first cap, seems to be likely goalkeeper for them. Jasper Cillessen is also battling for a spot, though Pasveer has been pretty good recently, and I think he'll be a starter for them. Though I do want to say, keep an eye out for 6'8" goalkeeper Andries Noppert. We saw what Louis van Gaal did with the Netherlands and Tim Krul earlier in 2014, and I think he's that guy for them. A 6'8" keeper has apparently done very well stopping penalties in practices, and I'd expect Van Gaal to keep him in his back pocket and use him should something happen in the knockout round. And I was mentioning luck a lot earlier. Penalties is a good part of that, and he could help them win a couple of penalty shootouts. So keep an eye out for Noppert, but I think Pasveer is going to be their starter at the moment. Defense is the strongest part of this team, and I think their back three is set in stone. Nathan Ake, Virgil van Dijk, and Timber are three very good center backs. All have athleticism, on-ball ability, and good reading of the game. And I think you could easily make the case that this is the best defense at the World Cup, at least with the center backs. The fact that Matthijs de Ligt and Stefan de Vrij are on the outside looking in tells you everything you need to know. It'll be tough to score on this Dutch team. We've seen Ake get off to a great start in the Premier League. Timber's one of the world's best prospects. And Van Dijk, a bit of a tough start for Liverpool right now, but I think we know he's a world-class player, and if that talent really starts to shine through, their defense is going to be tough to break through. Wingback is a very strong position as well. Denzel Dumfries has been a top-class wingback for Inter, and he's continued that form with the national team. His ability to get up and down the pitch makes him a real threat to opposition. Could be caught out a little bit against some top players like a Sadio Mane, but he's got a back three behind him that is one of the best in the world, so I expect him to do well. Left wingback has a bit more uncertainty. Daley Blind's been the preferred choice, and he's a good technical player that can help them in attack and build-up play, but he doesn't have any speed at all anymore, not that he had too much to begin with, and he can be a bit of a liability defensively, and he's going to be going up against a couple of good wingers this tournament, especially in the group stage. So you might want to see a Tyrell Malacia. He's had a good start to the season with Manchester United. I could see him break into the starting lineup. I think it would probably help team balance, and I think it would be an upgrade on Daley Blind, but Blind or Malacia is likely to be playing at that left wing back spot. It's likely to be a midfield 2 for the Netherlands, and I expect to see Frenkie de Jong partnered with Koopmeiners as the likely starters. Both provide a ton of help in build-up play and good defensive work, two good box-to-box midfielders, and I think there's a good amount of creativity in that group as well. Two very strong players, probably the best midfield in this group. Though that being said, Frank de Jong, he's a top-class player, but I think he's really yet to insert himself as a real elite world-level talent. Maybe this will be the time where he does it. He has that breakout performance. It's good that he's at Barcelona, but I feel like with Sergio Busquets in that team, he's not really able to show his ability to pick the ball deep as much. So maybe he could have a really great tournament here and establish himself as world-class, but it's yet to be seen. Koopmeiners, I feel like he's a very underrated player, but he only does things so well, especially when you get to the knockout round. He's not going to be as good, but he's still a very talented player. Also, Darun could come on as a more defensive option. Steven Bergwijn will come on and add an attacking element. And then they have two wonder kids in Kenneth Taylor and Ryan Gravenberch, who are just wonder kids who could impact the game. Two really talented midfielders. And it's a good young Dutch squad who I expect to only get better. But for this World Cup, there's still a good amount of solid players, and I'm expecting Frank de Jong to really have a good tournament. Up front, I expect it to be a fluid front three, at least to start the game. There's no true great striker in this Dutch team. I mentioned before, no Robbie van Persie, no Ruud van Nistelrooy or Kluivert. So I think that Memphis Depay is definitely going to be a starter. He's been a top goal scorer on the team and is a huge threat. He's really started to find himself when he moved to Lyon, and even if he's not playing the most at Barcelona right now, he's still a great player for them. Steven Bergwijn has been in great form recently as well, and he's performed well outside of Tottenham, especially when he can cut inside onto his left foot. Then we have Cody Gakpo, who's been on a tear to start the season, and is one of the most informed players in Europe, who I expect to have a good tournament. And while none of them are really true strikers, I wouldn't call any of them really world-class or world beaters, though Depay might be pretty close when he's on form. They should be able to find a goal, especially in the group stage, and all of them can find goals, have good speed to keep defenses honest, and I think they're very talented players. Also, if they wanted more traditional strikers, either Vincent Janssen or Wout Weghorst would be a more traditional striker to bring off the bench. Overall, this is a Dutch team with a very strong defense and attack that can punish opposing teams. That being said, they could have a tough time getting out of this group. They tend to play defensively a lot, and when push comes to shove and they have to really be the protagonists of the games and take it to opposition, they might have a tough time. And finding a goal will be very difficult against especially Senegal, and there are some good defenses at this tournament. So because of that, I don't expect them to get that far in the World Cup without a good amount of luck. I mentioned penalties before, but I think there's a lot to be excited about, and the Netherlands could have a decent time, and I think they're the best team in this group and should come out in first place. Next, we have Senegal, another team with a real chance to do something this World Cup. The African champions entered this tournament with a ton of momentum, and I think there's a case to be made, and I'd make the argument that they're the best African team of all time. They have legitimate star power with Sadio Mane, Edouard Mendy, and Koulibaly. Mane, world-class player, still doing well at Bayern and was amazing at Liverpool. Mendy, goalkeeper for Chelsea, has been recognized in Team of the Years, and Koulibaly's been a top defender in Serie A for a decade before moving to Chelsea, and I think this team has a real chance to do something this tournament. The team as a whole has been grinding out a lot of wins. We've seen them win a lot of close games, and especially against Egypt, a couple of penalty shootouts. Though, I think that's probably a good thing. They've shown that they can beat teams that are close to their level by playing a distinct style. This isn't a team that'll just crush a team worse than them 4-0. They don't really have that many outbursts of scoring despite the wealth of attacking talent they have. They've been grinding out a lot of wins, and I think it's a style of play that lends well to going up and playing higher levels of opposition, and they've shown that they can beat teams on their level as well. Because that, I think they will be able to get out of the group. It will be difficult, but they've got a strong goalkeeper who can help keep them in games, probably a top 5 of the World Cup, and it's going to be tough, but I think they definitely have the capability to advance to the knockout round, and once they're there, I can see something special happening. On to individual players, and in goal, obviously Edouard Mendy, just a really top-class goalkeeper. I said before I'd argue that he's a top 5 goalkeeper at this World Cup, and just a great player, really reliable. You'd expect him to keep Senegal in a couple of games. I kind of feel for their backup, Gomis, who's a very good player in his own right, but it's got to be Edouard. He's just too solid to leave off the team. Senegal play with a 4-3-3, so I'd expect to see 2 center backs on the field. Koulibaly is an amazing option as one. I can wax lyrical about him all day, just a great option. I think he'll be partnered by either Abou Diallo or Pape Abou Cissé. Diallo, the Leipzig defender, seems to have the inside track in my opinion. Cisse hasn't had the best start to the season in Greece, so I'd lean towards Diallo. Plus, he's a left-footed center back who's more skilled on the ball, and I think it'd be a very good partnership at the back that could stop even elite attacks on a good day. I think the defense is a very good part of Senegal's team, and with Mendy behind them, they're going to be tough to score on it against any team. Right back is a bit tough to predict for the Senegal team. They've had a lot of options recently. Bayern Munich's Bouna Sarr, Real Betis' Youssef Sabaly, Ayman's Mendy, and Name, who plays in Cyprus, have all featured recently. I'd say Sarr and Sabaly have the inside track to start. I think one of them would be preferred, though they have been dealing with some injuries recently. Sarr, he plays for Bayern Munich, but he's not exactly a star player for them, and I think that Sabaly offers a lot more defensively, and because of that, I think he'd be preferred, and leaving Sarr to do what he does best, sit on the bench. At left back, Cillessen has been their option for a while, but he's currently without a club and only getting older, so I'd expect Milan or Monaco backup, Fode Ballo-Touré, or Ismail Jacobs to be the options. Ballo-Touré has recently put in some very good performances for Milan, and Jacobs is more of a wingback naturally, so I'd lean towards Fode starting for Senegal. Fullbacks aren't the strongest, but Ballo-Touré has put in some good performances recently for Milan, and I don't expect them to be a real liability for this team. That being said, especially in this group, there are some good wingers they're going to be going up against. I mentioned the ones on Netherlands. Ecuador have some talented players as well, and it'll be good to see how they do against the really good test that both the Netherlands and Ecuador will provide, and it'll be fun to watch these guys play. The midfield three is also tough to predict. There's been a lot of rotation for Senegal, and I wouldn't expect one group to start all three games. That being said, Idrissa Gueye of Everton has been a locked-in starter for them, a very solid defensive midfielder. And I also expect to see Leicester's Mendy get into the team, another player to add steel to the midfield. We've also seen Kouyaté, Popege, Pathé Ciss, and Tottenham's Pape Sarr, as well as Mane just playing as a 10. I think Tottenham's Sarr provides a good amount of creativity that this midfield could use. Gueye and Mendy, they're a lot more of a defensive option, but it's really tough to say, and I could expect to see a good amount of them, possibly every one of them, start throughout this entirety of the World Cup. Mane is obviously going to be starting for Senegal, just an elite player, best player in this group in my opinion, and the only question is where. If he is at a 10, that gets a lot more options at the wing. If it's on the wing, what side will it be? We'll have to see. I'm expecting him to play on the left-hand side, which will leave Watford Sarr on the right-hand side with his dynamic pace, a player who Crystal Palace have been interested in, so I know a bit about him, just a really talented player. And if Mane does play in the middle, I'd expect Monaco's Diatta to play for Senegal on a wing. Unfortunately, Keita Baldi is banned due to substance abuse, but I think the attack is still very strong. Up top, Bouladia will likely be the guy. He's been looking good in possession and is dangerous in front of goal. I expect him to play very well with Mane and Sarr on the wings. I think he'll be a great striker for them, and Habib Diallo is another good option, but I think Dia will start and completing a very dangerous Senegal attack that will have a great matchup against the Netherlands. I'm really looking forward to that game. I think with their style of play and talent, Senegal have a chance to do very well this tournament. I think they can get out of the group, and if they do, I think they could easily take any Group B team. Their success in Africa lends itself well to handling Ecuador as well as Qatar, and I could see them giving the Netherlands some problems as well. If they do reach the knockout round, they will obviously be the underdogs, but I really like the Senegal team, and I think they have a chance to do something special this tournament. On to Ecuador, an extremely impressive young team that qualified out of the toughest region in the world to qualify from in South America. This team has a ton of young talent and a couple of veterans from 2014 to help guide the team. However, I think the squad is kind of in between generations and really doesn't have any top player in his prime. There are a few players playing in the top leagues compared to Netherlands and Senegal. I think they have less overall talent, and I think they have to be underdogs heading into this group. However, they've done well as underdogs in the past and can easily prove doubters wrong. Individually, Ecuador will likely be playing with a 4-3-3, an outside chance of a 4-2-3-1, and onto the individual players. In goal, we can expect to see either Dominguez or Galindez. Both of them are 35, though Dominguez has World Cup experience, while Galindez has only recently become a national team player. Dominguez comes with a lot of pedigree, done well in the World Cup before, though Galindez has put in some good performances lately. It's a very interesting battle, which could go either way, but I think it's kind of similar to like Wales with will Wayne Hennessy or Danny Ward start, where it's tough to say, but I don't think it'll end up making that big of a difference for Ecuador. I don't think either of them will either cost them or win them a game this tournament. At center back, we'll certainly see Leverkusen's left back, Piero Hincapié. Due to a ton of left back talent, he pushes into center back, similar to Scotland with Andrew Robertson and Tierney, and at 6 foot tall, he can easily do well in this role. He's an extremely talented prospect who's a beast physically and good on the ball, though he is only 20. The other center back has recently been Troy's Jackson Perozzo. He's another young player who's very good in the air, and he does well defensively, though he isn't as good on the ball. A more experienced and well-rounded option is Sao Paulo's Roberto Arboleda. More well-rounded, like I said, better on the ball, but I think some quality is sacrificed, and it's good to have the 6'5" Perozzo alongside Hincapié. I think that would really help the defense, though it could go either way, and I'm interested to see which they end up going with. At left back, Ecuador will field Purvis Estupiñán, the first of many Brighton players, a great left back who replaced Coccarella without missing a beat. He gets forward very well and is solid defensively. When I get to really good players, I have less to say because just great talent. It'll be really fun to watch him go against Sadio Mane and those Dutch wingers, and probably the best player on Ecuador, a really good option for them, and it's going to be fun to watch him. At right back is not as strong as left back, but we still have two good players to talk about in Genks Enelo Preciado and the man who caused all their controversy, Byron Castillo. You've also seen Seattle's Xavier Aranga fill in that position, though I wouldn't expect to see him here. Both Preciado and Castillo get forward very well. Preciado's even been playing more of an attacker for Genk. I think Castillo will likely be the starter. He's a more traditional right back who still offers a lot going forward, though Preciado could have an impact, especially if Castillo becomes a distraction. But I'm expecting to see Byron Castillo as right back for Ecuador. The midfield could go several ways, but one player I definitely expect to see is Carlos Cruzoe, likely the 6, shielding the back line, a solid defensive midfielder who is a lot more of a destroyer, and he's one of the few players on this team who's actually in his prime. Another player is Brighton's Moises Caicedo, another starter who is just playing very well for Brighton right now. Similar to his compatriot, he's filled in for a departing player extremely well. He provides some great defensive work, and I think he's a very good passer as well. I think he's probably the closest thing Ecuador has to a legitimate wonder kid, though he is only 20, 21 by the World Cup, so I wouldn't put too much pressure on him, but he is a top talent and a reason for Ecuador to be excited for the future. I'd also expect to see Jose Cofumentes, a good box-to-box midfielder for LAFC as the last player in the midfield, though you could see a hard worker in Alex Mendez come into the squad, or if they go with a 4-2-3-1, Brighton's Jeremy Sarmiento could come in. Wing is an interesting position for Ecuador because their two best players like to play as an inverted right winger. Both Angel Mina and Gonzalo Plata are two very good options. Mina is 34 and Plata is 21. Again, they struggle to find a player who's actually in their prime. Hopefully they can get both on the field. They have tried that a little bit. One of them won't be at their best, but you'd like to see as much talent on the field as possible. Plata is another top prospect, great pace and dribbling, and he has had some good goal contributions in Liga 2 last year, though I wouldn't call his end product great yet. Then we have Mina, who still has some athleticism in him, despite being 34, but he's clearly lost some of his skill and hasn't been at his best in Liga MX this season. So I'm hoping if they go with one, it'll be Plata. I'm really excited to see him play, but if they end up going with Mina and have Plata be an impact sub off the bench, that could be another good option. If they do want a more traditional left-wing option, Romario Ibarra is a less impressive option on the left, but he does fit the team and is actually probably in his prime still as a player. Up top, it's very simple. Enner Valencia, breakout player at the 2014 World Cup, is still the main man for Ecuador. A great target man who can score goals even at this level. Michael Estrada is a good option off the bench, but Valencia is going to be their starter and could very well be a star player for Ecuador at this tournament. Overall, this Ecuador team has a good mix of top young prospects and some solid veterans, though unfortunately the team really doesn't have many players at their best, and I don't think they have the world-class talent seen in the Netherlands and Senegal, but they made it out of a tough group before, and I think they could do it again, though they will definitely be underdogs. Lastly, we have Qatar, and they're the team that I think is probably the toughest to talk about this tournament, because they're the host nation, and host nations typically reach the knockout round of the World Cup, And they did recently have some success in the tournament, winning the AFC Championship. They had a decent run at the Gold Cup as well. Though they have looked very bad recently, and they are in a group with 3 talented teams. And just going off of overall quality of players, I expect them to finish last. And they don't even have enough good players in this group for me to want to run through the team individually. I'm going to be talking about Qatar and the predictions on the quality of their team, though keep in mind, as host nations, they are very likely to reach the knockout round. And FIFA decided to go forward with this tournament despite massive backlash, and a cynical side of me expects there to be a lot of calls going Qatar's way this tournament. I'm hoping justice prevails and they exit early, or at least they earn a spot to the next round. They have had some good runs at tournaments before, but I don't think we should run through this team. There just isn't a good enough player pool to do that, and if they advance, it's not going to be because of the quality of with that out of the way, here are my predictions for the actual games. I've already said that I expect Netherlands to win the group and Senegal to get through as well. But for the actual performances, in the opener, I'm expecting Ecuador to be able to win against Qatar should everything go right, like I mentioned. I just really like this Ecuador team, and I think they will be able to really be interesting this tournament. Then I'm expecting Netherlands' defense to be able to shut down Senegal's attack, and the Netherlands' offense to find a winner. I really like the defense of this Netherlands squad. I think they have the athleticism to keep up with the Senegal team, and I really like their attack as well. I think they'll be able to give, especially the fullbacks on Senegal, a lot of trouble and be able to find a winner. Then I think Senegal will rebound with a win against Qatar, and Netherlands will be able to secure a spot in the knockout round with a win against Ecuador. Then on the last day, I'm expecting Senegal to beat Ecuador to get their way through, and Netherlands should finish top of the group. You know, it's going to be really fun to watch this team this World Cup. I mentioned before, as an American, I'm keeping track of all these teams because I know the optimist in me thinks we can play them. This is a team that, honestly, is kind of a group of death. Because if you count Qatar as a host and them likely to get through, like, they're a pot 1 team. Then you have Netherlands, Ecuador, and Senegal, and just a really fun squad. And it's going to be fun to watch. I hope that a team doesn't get screwed over by getting Qatar through. But overall, it's going to be just a fun group. I'm really looking forward to it. And yeah, that's all I would talk about. See ya.